We are in an amount of debt didn't realize was possible. We had 12 houses for sale, none under contract, upside down on all of them. And it's like, oh no, this is really bad. I didn't have great scripts around it and I didn't have any marketing. I got to the point where I was generating about 100 closings per year.
What do you see as that person who's doing 20 to 30 deals a year to actually scale up to like 100 deals a year?
The biggest challenge people have is...
You said that agents chasing leads are playing the wrong game. What do you mean by that?
They're growing a successful, profitable, awesome business, but they're taking care of people. If we pulled up the Justin Landis Group agents on our calendar, you'll see people have blocked off time for go for a walk, go to the gym. This is pretty unique at a team.
You built a $1 billion plus brokerage at this point.
We, for a lot of years, had no external goal for the team around volume or sales. Our only goal that was external was...
What have you learned through going through, I'm sure you've had hundreds of interviews, thousands of applications.
This was a game changer.
You built a $1 billion plus brokerage at this point, and one of the things that you said that was very interesting is that you said that agents chasing leads are playing the wrong game. And what do you mean by that?
I mean, I think in this business, one of my mantras is have conversations, build relationships, create freedom. And I think in the real estate agent business, that if you want to have a sustainable business, a long-term business, that we should be, chasing sounds kind of like negative, but we should be building relationships, because that's something that it's an asset where, if you're chasing leads, whether it's internet leads, expireds, door knocking, whatever, you got to always keep doing it. You're always doing it and doing it and doing it. But if you build, we call it a relationship portfolio. That's people who know you, like you, trust you, and you're their go-to agent. When you've got that group of people, every year they refer you, they come back. And so it's an asset that you put the work in, you have those conversations, you build relationships, and then over time, that keeps coming back and producing more and more business for you, as opposed to chasing a lead. And then you get the closing, but then it's like, hey, I got to chase the next one.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing when I looked at it, is like you're huge on relationship building and referrals and like scaling that. Like someone might say, well, that doesn't necessarily scale. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question and a great conversation. I mean, there are different levels, and there is a point at which like you can only have so many personal relationships. But when I first started out and I was doing the relationship thing, and this may be interesting for someone listening, my very first year, my goal was to have one face-to-face every day. I was like, this is not that like maybe this is not brilliant or anything, but I was like, all right, there's 50 weeks in the year, 5 days a week, that's 250. If I meet with 250 people face to face, surely some of them are going to need to buy or sell a house. You know? I mean, like, surely if I meet 250 people, some of them will work with me. And I didn't have great scripts around it, and I didn't have any marketing, and like it was just me. But I met people, and I'm a big extrovert, so like this is like right in my wheelhouse. It's like life-giving to do this. And this is not like a listing appointment or a buyer consult. I mean, this is just coffee, a drink, lunch, going for a run, watching a game. But I'm like tracking like how many people I could meet with. And so did that, and was really diligent about it. And for anyone listening, the only thing that it takes is effort to do that. Like if you ask enough people to have coffee or go to lunch or come over and watch something at your house, like you can get the yeses if you ask enough people. That's not as hard as trying to like call expireds and get a yes. And so anyway, did it, and that's what built my business. And so that first year I didn't sell that many houses, but the next year after that, I think I sold like 30 houses. And it was like a shockingly good year that all came from just doing that. And then I followed up with people and stayed in touch and was helpful. And as my business started to grow and I started to bring on people to help me, I didn't plan to do this at first. Like when I hired an assistant, my thought was, well, I'm going to get more time back. But then I sold like 20 more houses because I had more time and I built more relationships and got more business. And then I was like, well, I'm going to bring on a buyer's agent, and that'll free up some time. And then I think I went from like 55 to 75 transactions. And I was like, oh, each time somebody takes something off my plate, I can generate more business because it's what I love to do and it's all relationship based. Yeah. But to your point of scaling, it did level off. So I got to the point where I was generating about 100 closings per year out of my database, my relationship portfolio. I had like 500 people that were in there. And I had moved out of production actually at this point. And so I'm like, my full thing is build relationships and, convert the business and get the business. And then the team started to work it. So it did level off at 100. And so if you want to go bigger than that, then yes, you're going to have to do another way. But what we learned from the scaling standpoint is we teach the same thing to the team at this point. And so we teach the meet with people every day. We teach the follow up. We teach the stay in touch. And so, we've been able to grow that at the team for a lot of years at the team. I think this may be interesting for some folks if you're having a team, because I feel like this is pretty unique at a team. We, for a lot of years, had no external goal for the team around volume or sales. Our only goal that was external was the number of referrals the team received. And so we have led off every team meeting since probably 2015 with everybody shares their referrals from the last week, how they got the referral, what the connection was. We have a chart where you come up and you put a sticker on it. And so that's a way that you can scale it through other people, is by teaching that same thing that you were doing yourself. So yeah, I'm not going to get to 1,000 referrals myself because there's not enough time in the year to do it. But through other people, if you teach the same methods, you can do it.
Yeah, and I'm curious, and we can get into the team stuff, but that I was actually going to ask that is like, because you probably saw and learned in order to scale yourself, you have to be able to teach like your system to other people.
Yep.
So I'm sure you operationalize that a little bit. And it seems like, for example, the talking about the referral goal was like one form of operationalizing it. Like, what else did you do to be able to transfer what you did onto like the 300 plus agents now that you have?
Yeah. This has been a big transition, and so there might be something that's helpful at each of these phases for people. I mean, at the very beginning, so the first thing is, had administrative help, and I am not great administratively, and so I have been so lucky that Amanda, who joined me, I think at like the beginning of 2014, still with me. I have not hired or trained another person on the admin side since then, which is like an absolute blessing. I mean, absolute blessing. But with her, and I've had some assistants after that she's moved on to like leadership role. One of the things that I love, and I think this is really helpful for people when you have that first administrative person, is I would call them every time I would leave an appointment. You're in the car already, right? So, I mean, at least here in Atlanta, you're doing a lot of driving. There's time in between the appointments. And if you're in a city like that, and so I get in the car and I just call and I'd be like, hey, how's it going? And here's what happened in this appointment. And what do you think about that? And so it was a way for us, while I was out in the field selling houses, to always stay in touch and for her to learn a ton of things. And you don't have to have some like fancy video training and 100-day plan and all this stuff. If you're in like constant communication around. Now, we do now have a 100-day plan, and we do have video training and all this stuff for like eventually. But at the beginning, when the group is small, like you just got to get the information out of your head into the very one next person. And so I like to be able to do it in the flow. Another thing that was really helpful with her that have repeated again is and I think this is probably common of a lot of great admins, they don't want to make a mistake. Like they're very like, want to get it all right, want to be 100%. And she was asking me questions that I felt pretty confident she knew the answer to or could answer them, And so at one point, it wasn't that early on, maybe we were 5 or 6 months in, I was like, hey, from now on, every question you answer me, I want you to tell me what you think the answer is before I answer it. And she started doing it. And, I guess you could learn a couple things. One, if she was always wrong, this would be like eye-opening to be like, she does not know what she's doing. I got to like help her. I'm glad this is not like going out into the world. On the other hand, in this case, because she was doing great, like, hey, she's right 98% of the time. That helps her give confidence. You don't need to keep asking me this stuff. You've noticed like every time you like give me the solution, I'm like, that's a great solution, do it. And so I think like early on, those are a couple little things where you don't have to overcomplicate it and have some like fancy plan. It's just like helping that first person get in there. That's on the admin side. Same thing on the buyer and seller side is those first buyer's agent and listing agents. We would go on so many appointments together. I think there's no substitute for that. And when your team is small, if you only have 1 or 2 people, that you're bringing on, you can do it. Because once again, it's in the flow of what you're doing. I'm already going on this listing appointment. Yeah. Come with me. I'm already going on this. I'm doing a buyer consult. I'm going out for showings. Come with me and see it. And then we would recap afterwards. Ashton, who was the first person to work with me on the listing side, who now runs our listing team. I mean, we probably went on 70 listing appointments.
Yeah, I think I saw like 70.
Like probably 70 our first year together. And it ranged from like at the beginning, she's coming in and saying hi, and she's not saying anything else because she didn't know anything, you know? And like I'm leading it. And over the year would give her more like, hey, why don't you take this part? Why don't you take this part? And she's taking more and more. By the end of the second year, she was doing 80% of the appointment. I was basically making the introduction, trying to say a couple things that are funny and make sure that, you know, like she got a smooth transition. But that doesn't take a ton of extra time because I was already doing it. And so same thing on the phone calls. She's on there. She's just listening. But like that stuff is just really valuable. And so I think when you're early on with a couple of people, that didn't answer your how do you get it to 300 people, but to get to those first couple people, for anybody that's listening in that phase,
like really integrate them.
Yeah, just do it together. Like you're already doing it. Integrate them. Do it with them. And it's so cool now. I mean, every now and then when I go on an appointment with Ashton and I hear her, I'm like, oh, she is so good. I mean, it is absolutely amazing, you know? So anyway, I think that's like my big learning from those early days.
And I don't know, have you ever saw or read anything about like situational leadership?
Tell me more. What do you mean?
So there's like 4 phases of someone goes through, and like phase 1, they need more direction and more hand holding.
Yep.
And then phase 2, it's kind of like more coaching. And then phase 3 is a little more like supporting. You're not needing to coach as much. And then that's phase 3. And then phase 4 is a little more like autonomous.
Yep.
And people kind of move throughout. And it sounds like whether you knew it or not, like you went from like, hey, here's what to do.
Yep.
I do it. And then we did it together, and you kind of let her lead it, and you're just like, tell me what you think.
Yeah.
And
I'm not sure there's that much intentionality that you just said, but that's definitely been the path that we've tried to follow. It's like I'll do it, and we do it, and you do it. And I think one of the big things about growing, this is like jumping ahead to 300 agents or growing any business, and I think this is hard in a real estate or a service business where you are the product essentially, is to give up that control because they're not going to do it exactly like you. I mean, no one's a robot who's just going to like say the exact same thing. And so you got to be able to give it up a little bit and give them the opportunity to potentially fail. I mean, I can remember pretty early on after I had transitioned out of the listing side, Ashton and I were going on the appointments together, but then she was working the business. There was a multiple offer situation, and an agent that I knew didn't like how Ashton handled it. And she was, yelling at me on the phone and all mad or whatever. And I think there could be a tendency to take it back, But I was like, multiple offers are hard. Unless she gets to try it, she's not going to learn it. She's got to actually do it. And so, we talked through the situation, and she had a reason for what she was doing. And the other agent was probably more on the right side, but still, it's like, you got to learn this stuff and do it together. And I'm there to help you. I'm not just like, good luck and, make a bunch of mistakes. But I think if you're going to scale any sort of service-based business, you've got to give people the opportunity to do it. And make some mistakes along the way.
I was actually, so I had someone, his name is Sean Cahan. He runs, I think they do about $3 to $4 billion a year in sales for the mortgage side funding. And they're going to like double it this year. And
awesome.
We talked about that exact thing, failing. We as like founders and business owners are so okay with us failing. But then sometimes when the team or the employees fail, it's like you might be quick to be like, hey, like pointing out to them, and they already knew they failed. Yeah. It's like you have to be able to let them. It's like the whole analogy of like you have to let them figure out how to swim as well.
Yeah, for sure. So true on that. I never thought about it from the standpoint of a lot of founders like will say like fail forward and try stuff and fail it, but then when somebody else is doing it, I don't want to let them do it. No, you do it perfectly. I'll make the mistakes.
Yeah,
that's funny.
That was an interesting thing. But another thing that you said that was interesting to me, that when I looked at the research is you have a few, I think, partners in the business that have been around forever, and then Ashton's been around forever. It seems like there's a handful of people that have just been in the business for a long time.
Yep.
And I'm curious, like from your perspective, like what do you think it takes to build an organization and a culture where you can have that person grow and want to like stay with you?
Yeah. I think a couple things. One, I think you have to value it, which I just value I value, I don't know if loyalty is the word. It's probably more just like longevity and, the history together. I actually was thinking about this a couple weeks ago and put a post on LinkedIn about it, where I had my first friend in kindergarten. He doesn't live here. He had come down to Atlanta. We went to a Hawks game together. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm still good friends with my first friend in kindergarten. My wife and I were high school sweethearts. My business partners are, for like 13, 15 years ago. It's like, there's definitely something here where there's, like this like longevity of relationship. So one, like I value it. And I think because I think that there's a lot of advantage of, we've never lost a big book of business. Mm-hmm. There's intellectual property that's been, retained. We have collective intelligence of doing thousands of transactions in all these years together. So I value it. I think on the other hand, for like what practically does it take, I think it's probably twofold. One is the organization or your opportunity has to grow, because if the person is worth having a long-term relationship with, they're probably, and you want to grow, they're probably like pretty talented and ambitious. Yep. So you got to have more opportunity, or they're not everyone, but a lot of them probably go do it somewhere else. So, I mean, that's been a big driver. I like growth, and that's one of my biggest drivers, is to help give people opportunity to continue to grow so we can do it together. And then two, I've included them, from the standpoint of inviting them to be partners, and we do real estate investment deals on our own, and, partners in other businesses. And so I think those are probably the practical things. It's like, hey, we've been able to grow the organization. I've brought them in to do things together, and I think those really produce longevity. And then on that last phase of like on the leadership thing, I definitely will give a lot of autonomy. I mean, I am not the type to take something back. Once you have got it, and this is maybe a fault of mine, I'm moving on to the next thing. It's like, hey, you got it, I'm going to go do something else, So people have a lot of autonomy. And I think for a lot of leaders, they like that because they can make it, put their own stamp on it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's good that be able to be like, hey, I trust you, and being like giving them ownership in the company. Because that's a big thing with like a lot of big companies, like got big because they started to give ownership within the team so that they feel part of the team.
Yep.
But as a salesperson, as an agent, sometimes it can feel weird to be like, oh, I'm losing. The sales world, it's more common that you see people have 100% ownership or higher 100%. But then when you look in the tech world, it's way more common that there's like 4 founders or 4 partners.
That is interesting. What do you think leads to that? Wonder what's the root of why that's the way it is?
I mean, if I had to be honest, I feel like when you build something, you feel very tied to it, and there could be either a sense of like pride, ego, whatever, that you don't want to give a piece of it away.
Yeah.
That would be my thought.
I can see that for sure.
What about you?
I think you're right. I think you're right on that. And I think it's probably just more common on the sales side of like, I can do it. It's me that's selling it,
Yeah. And you talk about relationships a lot, and you have a quote that you said, the older I get, the more I believe this might be the best investment I ever made. Not the fastest, not the flashiest, but the one that keeps paying me back every season of life.
Yeah, I've come to this. This is not my phrase. Where did I read this phrase? I'd like to give it credit to the right person, but been using the term memory dividends, that relationships pay memory dividends. And if you think about it, the longer back that something happened, the more time there is to enjoy that memory, right? Like you can tell that story and you can tell that story and you've got that common bond and you can build off of it. And so, yeah, I mean, I really have valued the relationships that I've had. I think they have paid a lot of memory dividends over time. And this is not from like a business standpoint. This is just pure enjoyment and life, fulfillment and all of that. I do think as I kind of mentioned, the long-term relationships in business, I also think are helpful because of that trust that's produced. Because to your point of like handing things off, well, I know I can hand things off because we've got a long-term relationship and you've succeeded at a lot of other things. And so I think there's value in that too. But yeah, personally, it's like one of my biggest things is to try to create memories and enjoy the dividends from them.
Yeah. And I think I think the fact that building relationships, like that seems to be a very centerpiece for you.
Definitely.
And it's like throughout every business, throughout everything that you do, like relationships is at the core. And I'm curious, like, what do you feel or what do you see that people do wrong in building relationships, in building a long-term business that like actually endures for like decades rather than something that's just like a flash in the pan for.
Yeah. I think one of the big things is to make sure that you're not trying to use the relationship or person like to monetize it. I think that if you build a relationship where you actually get to know each other, you care, you're helpful, that especially in this type of service businesses, that the income is going to come from it. And so I think the mistake can be of like, hey, I need to get a referral or closing from this person. I need to get money. I need to monetize it versus just, hey, I want to build a relationship. I'm going to be helpful. I'm going to add value. And if you do that enough, then I think that the business is going to come from that. So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see is people trying to use those relationships as, just a cash register, basically.
Yeah. And you also mentioned earlier that you like growth and thinking about it. Like when you think of growth, you think of like client acquisition, talent acquisition. Do you think like retention? Like what do you start to think through like when you're like, okay, we want to grow the organization the next like year or two?
Yeah. Well, I've got a growth framework that we have in place at the Justin Landis Group. So I got two businesses. I got the Justin Landis Group real estate team, and I got Bolst, which is our independent brokerage, and Justin Landis Group are agents at Bolst. At the Justin Landis Group, the growth initiative that we're working through right now, we call it 5, 10, 20, and it's a 5-year period. And over that 5 years, we're trying to help 20 more agents. Have helped 38 agents do this since the Justin Landis Group started. But trying to help 20 more agents reach $100,000 in GCI in 1 year. From, I've met with hundreds at this point of people getting into real estate, new agents, newer agents. I can't tell you what percentage they want to make $100,000. I mean, it's a round number, and it's something good about it, and it's an income at which, and especially here in Atlanta, you can start to like look forward a little bit and like work towards your business plan in the long term. It's not like I've got to get a closing right now because where's my rent check coming from type thing. And so, agents want to get to 100,000. I want to help them accomplish that goal. And so we're trying to help 20 more agents get to 100,000 over the next 5 years. The 10 is 100 lifetime transactions. I feel like that's, once again, it's a round number, but generally speaking, that's like the next phase where you can turn it from a sales job, being a real estate agent, into a career. Because once you get to that 100 transactions, most people have options. You've got a handful of options where, one, a lot, so you could start to teach or educate or be a broker or a sales leader. Two, if you want to really increase your dollar per hour and have more of a lifestyle type business, but those 100 past clients, if you stay in great relationship and take care of them, you're going to get 10 or 12 referrals every year out of that, 10 or 12 pieces of business. Your dollar per hour can start to be really high. Or if you really want to scale it, the fact that you have that inbound business coming off of those 100 makes it way easier to get an exponential growth, assuming you're still doing your lead gen to build on top of it. Yeah. And so want to help people get to that 100 where they're building that career. And then the 5, which this kind of goes back to what we're talking about, is 5 more people moving into leadership roles. We've had 6 people since the Justin Landis Group started who have moved out of production into leadership roles. Agents who, all of them, were selling a ton of houses and have moved into like managing broker, director of training, chief revenue officer, chief operating officer, run our property management business. And so, helping people take that next step, because that's like the ultimate, because now they're like taking what they've learned and helping others and helping bring others up. So that's my current like specific, like if you're trying to put like, what are some specifics around growth at the Justin Landis Group, that's what we're trying to do over the next 5 years is to, help. And that's just like helping people move up through all that career ladder so that JOG is a place that they can build their career and we can do it together.
That's awesome. And it kind of gives you like a goal for each phase. And I'm curious, like from getting from 0 to 100K and then the 100K to, let's call it 100 lifetime deals, maybe even 100 deals a year. Like what's like the few things that the agent needs to do to get the 100K? It's like if they just do this, they're going to like at least hit it?
Yeah. That's a great question. And we have cohorts for each of these. So if you're on your way up, you're in the cohort going to 100K. And then if you're already over it, you're on the cohort. And so we're trying to help them work through these things, which is why I bring that up. But I mean, under 100K, it is typically, they are nervous about the consistency or lack of consistency in their income. And it is getting that consistency in lead generation and follow up. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. I mean, at the team, we have a couple, legs on our lead gen stool, but it's really, you've got to figure out, how am I going to get business in this business, do it consistently, and do it over time. And so that's the big thing to get to 100. You just got to feel like, how am I going to generate this business? And so for the team, the couple ways that we do it is, one, we teach the relationship-based business, which I talked about. And then the team, we generate a lot of marketing, a lot of leads through our marketing, and we have an inside sales team that sets appointments. And so we're trying to help them, both get good at converting the leads they get, which is a little bit of a different skill set, and to generate business through their relationships and through meeting people. Because I feel like if you can do them both together, this is one of the things I love about the team, is if you can do them both together, you can get to that like 100K, 100 houses faster, because the team's providing business. And so that's like opportunities where like you're working with someone who's like in now, but you're still building your relationship-based business, which is your long-term goal. And when you help someone that, comes in as a team lead, well, you want to develop a relationship with them and move them over to the other side so that they're in that relationship portfolio too. And so if we can help people do both of those things and do them well, and we have standards on both sides of what we're trying to do, but if we can help both those people, both of them do them well, that's going to help them get to that 100K. Then they can switch their focus more towards, to get to that 100 transactions, that takes a little while. So you need some sustainability in there. So in that, I mean, we got to work with folks on their systems. You can't be just a lot of what draws people to real estate a lot of times is there's, a lot of freedom and autonomy, and there's no schedule, and that can be fun, but it's not necessarily the best for scaling your business. It's hard to keep track of everything in your head and be on top of things, right? So we got to help them follow a system and, take care of themselves and not work 7 days a week and be sustainable, so that they can come back the next year and sell another 20 houses. They can come back the next year and sell another 20 houses. And so we're helping. That's the big thing there in that next level. And then to get to the leadership, that's a whole different thing, because you can be a great salesperson and a terrible leader, right? I mean, just because you're really good at selling doesn't mean you're going to be good at leading someone or teaching someone. And so, with that group, we're trying to see what matters to them, what do they want to do, and tailor our, it's a smaller group of people, so we can more tailor a path to them based on their long-term goals.
Yeah, more like hands-on, one-on-one coaching there.
Yeah, I work with that top group myself, which I absolutely love. Actually meeting with them all tomorrow. Nice. And yeah, it's super fun. But they have really wide, that's the thing. The folks getting to 100, they all have the same thing. They need more business and they need to sell more houses. Once you've sold 100 houses and you've been doing it for a while, people are trying to do different things. And so you got to meet them where they are with that.
And I want to talk about the leadership, because I'm interested a little in that, to hear your perspective. But I do want to ask for the other two kind of cohorts, how much do you see that is probably just more as simple as they just need to be consistent? Because sales is a roller coaster, and do you see it as sometimes they just need to be a consistent business and think of it like a consistent business, kind of like going to the gym? Hey, you go to the gym every single week, no matter what. It's just something that you do consistently.
Yeah, I mean, I think as boring and not exciting as that is, I mean, that is the key thing. I mean, the real estate agent coaching industry is a humongous industry, and it is really helpful. I mean, most people who get coaches do better. It's not like the coaches have some sort of secret playbook that's never heard. It's hey, do the things that actually are important and keep doing them and do them consistently. And then the coaching clients increased their business 60%. I mean, they did because they did it. And that's the value. I mean, I'm joking about it. It's not that the coach is not valuable. The coach is very valuable because it can be hard to yourself to do those things consistently. But yeah, man, it's you just got to have those conversations. I mean, I keep breaking it down to conversations. There's lots of ways to do it, right? You can have conversations door knocking, you can have conversations cold calling, you can have conversations face to face. But you can buy online leads and have conversations. You can work through a pond of old leads, but you've got to get the combo of the right quantity and quality of conversations, right? Because like if I'm cold calling expireds, I can have a lot of conversation, high quantity. The quality is pretty low on most of them, right? And if we're meeting one-on-one with friends, a lot of those are really high quality, but it's hard to have the same quantity. Yeah. So you got to find that combo of how do I get a high enough quantity of quality conversations. And once people start doing that, if you can do that consistently, that's when you really can your business starts to be so much more consistent. You always have things in the pipeline, and you can start to have conversations, build relationships, create freedom. You can start to have some freedom of like, I know business is coming because of all this work that I've already done.
Yeah. Do you the quantity and quality, like, do you track those, or do you share that thinking with the team? It's like, hey, there's different types of like leads, there's different types of people. It's going to look through a different lens of quantity and quality. Or
man, that'd be fun. I wish maybe we should figure out a way to track the quality of it. We're definitely tracking. The agents are having conversations with their database, and so they're tracking like how many conversations do they had, and then on the lead side, I mean that's more on the quantity. You know, like how many the new agents all come in and they have to make a certain number of connections and have conversations. But the combo of the quality and quantity, I'm gonna look into that next time we get together. Maybe I'll have something for you on that. If you could figure out. Probably AI could do that for you, right? I mean,
yeah, it would be pretty interesting because
you
could probably track the different lead sources, quantity, quality, and you could start to look at the numbers at a pretty high level and be like, the data says this has the highest payoff per hour, or the highest ROI. That's cool. All right, you got me onto something there. I like that. That's good. So moving into kind of like the next cohort, like, and I'm gonna kind of like lean this a little more towards like what you did. Getting to that like 100 deals per year type of business, what do you see as that person who's doing like 20 to 30 deals a year, like, to like actually scale up to like 100 deals a year, 80 to 100? Yep.
The most common, the biggest challenge people have, and I was actually talking about this last week with some of our leadership at Bolst, with a good amount of our top individual agents don't have an assistant, which I am challenging them and trying to get them. Like, I think that they would both do more business and to have a better quality of life to have an assistant. But the couple things that are a barrier there for a lot of people is, one, they're nervous to give it up because they're worried. Or two, well, that's the second one. Oh, okay. The first one is just nervous, like this person's not going to do it as well as I am. Yeah. They're going to mess something up. They're not going to do as well. What if they don't, do a good job, and then I got to hire somebody else? How am I going to train them? I mean, they're worried in like the details of it. The second one is, and I can really appreciate this, is they want to make sure that they hire someone, they can afford them and keep them. And that's a great concern to have, because, there's a added responsibility to be the employer and try to provide that role. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is to start to get things to come off of your plate so that you can do the things that are the highest value, which is typically generate business and be with clients, like actually do the client work. And so it's gotten easier now, I think, than maybe it was like when I first got my assistant, 15, however many years ago. There were like outsourced transaction coordination was not so readily available. There weren't showing assistants. There were like, maybe there were, but I didn't know about like part-time marketing and getting, fractional marketing support. It was kind of like, well, I need help. I got to get an assistant. And this assistant's going to do everything. Like, I mean, she's doing everything, even if she's not good at it. Like somebody's got to do it. But you got to start working that. And then as I try to help agents work through this, here's kind of where I go. If it can be done as well or better than you could do it, and it is a low dollar per hour to have it done, that's where I like to start. Because you don't want your quality to drop as you start to outsource things. You want it to be the same or hopefully better, And some things cost a lot more than others, right? I mean, to generate a good listing appointment is really expensive.
Yep.
To have someone turn your paperwork into the brokerage, that is very not expensive. I mean, it doesn't cost much to have someone do that. And so that's the kind of thing, a lot of it, starting on the administrative side, I mean, is people, I mean, a lot of agents, myself included, are not that good at it. So it is actually better to have someone else do the administrative side of it.
Yeah.
And it's not that expensive. So to me, I'm like, hey, this is the place to start. And so a lot of times, here's a little exercise that if anybody's listening that would find this helpful, that I've done, I've had a lot of people do, can do it different phases, is take a week or two and write down everything you're doing. First time I did this, I had literal note cards, and I had them like in the car and in my office and at the desk at home. And anytime I did something, I would write it down. And so at the end, I had like all these note cards of all the things I did. And this would be like schedule a showing, drop off a sign, everything that I was doing. And then the next time I did it on like a Google Sheet. But you can look at that and you start to look at like where you're spending your time, and you're like, oh man, the time that I'm checking on this from the lender, I'm turning this into the brokerage, I deposited this check, and you start to look at that admin stuff and you're like, somebody else could do this, they'd do it well, and it wouldn't be that expensive. Then you look back, you're like, oh, then I could have more time having coffees, generating business, finding stuff off market for my clients, whatever the case is.
Yeah, we actually started doing time studies for like every role in every department.
What'd you learn? I'm curious how that went.
You learn a lot. It's like you spend like, you look at a role and you're like, they're spending 10 hours doing what? And like, I saw it myself, and I was spending like 30% of my time in Slack, just like answering questions.
Stuff. Yeah.
And it's like really eye-opening when you look at it like on black and white.
Yeah. That's so cool that you've done that. Yes, every time I've done it, it's been, or had someone do it, I mean, it's always interesting to learn it. So, yeah, I mean, those agents, if they can start to get leverage, they've got to get leverage. A lot of times at that point, they need to start setting some boundaries is another thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm big on, especially when you start in this business, of say yes, do stuff, work a lot. You never know where it's going to be. Once your business is more consistent, your income's more stable, then I do think to make it sustainable, working 24/7, 365 is not sustainable. You got to start to get some boundaries, and you got to make time for your health and your fitness and your family and all that sort of stuff. And so a lot of times we're working through with like what's their schedule and how do they maximize their time? How do they, maximize their time at home if they have a family, that sort of stuff. And so all of those sort of things come in when someone's at that 20, 30, 40 is like, hey, we got to start getting stuff off their plate. We got to make sure the time they're using is really effective. We got to make sure they're not getting burned out. And if people can keep doing that and they take the stuff off the plate and they generate more business, which is what fortunate, lucky, whatever happened to me. Like I was not trying to do that, but I did it. Then we'll just help keeping them get more leverage, and then it's like, hey, all right, now let's start to take the showings off of your plate. Showings are a lower dollar than an actual buyer's agent. If you have a buyer's agent, you have to give up a larger percentage. The showing agent is really inexpensive to do the showings, so we'll get the showings. Eventually, hey, once you're in enough business where you can give up the buyers because you got so many listings, cool. Yeah. That's great, but you don't want to do that until you've taken the lower cost, the easier things off your plate, and then you've gotten to that place. So we'll try to help them keep taking those steps forward to be more efficient, make sure they're sustainable, have a good life, and leverage things off their plate.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about like leverage and hiring, but you said something else with scheduling. The scheduling, I was curious because do you actually sit down with an agent and be like, show me your schedule, let's see what you're doing? And because like, as an example, we work with a lot of creatives, and like the worst thing that creatives do is they work at night, and it's like, there's no consistency there. And we had to like, literally have to flip it. And I'm sure agents are kind of similar where it's like, most of them probably don't have a consistent schedule. No.
Yeah. I mean, that is especially early on for the agents to get that schedule in place. I mean, is huge. And I mean, we've always subscribed to I don't think the data necessarily shows this is the most effective time to prospect and lead gen, but we always want people to do it in the morning because the day gets away from you. I mean, the number of things that can come up that can prevent you from your 3 to 4 o'clock block of lead generation versus your 8:30 to 9:30 is just night and day. So I don't know, maybe more people pick up the phone at 3 to 4, but my experience shows people are doing more between 8:30 and 9:30, like actually getting it done. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, we try really hard to make sure that that's one of the big things when the agents come in is to make sure that they have a schedule and they know what they need to do each day. Because that can be a tough thing, right? You're like, all right, I want to generate business today. I want to have a great day today. what am I going to do today? I don't know. What am I going to do? And so you need to help them figure out what do they need to do each day.
Basically, it's like eating the frog. It's like, hey, do the hardest thing at the beginning, and then everything else is easier, which I know like Gary Keller is really big on with the one thing. So.
Oh, yeah. Love that. I mean, that is such a great book. Yeah, such a great book. Yeah, and I think the other thing that it can do for you, especially as you've been in the business longer, if you have realized like, hey, I know that I need to, prospect this number of hours or make this number of conversations or calls or whatever your thing is, it also gives you freedom to like let it go a little bit and be like, hey, maybe I don't have as many under contract right now as I want, or maybe I could, it's 3:00. Could I wrap up for the day? Yes. If you've already done the things that you know are going to generate the amount of business you're trying to do, you can have a little bit of freedom to be like, hey, I am going to go for a run this afternoon, or I am going to go for a walk or pick my kids up from school when I usually don't, or whatever it is, because like I did this stuff. And so I think there's like power from a just like mindset and comfort space to be able to get that stuff done early as well.
Yeah. When you do the hard thing in the morning, you have a lot more freedom to be like, I can do something later in the day.
Yeah, I can be more flexible. I can do something else. Yeah.
And do you go walk with the agents through like, hey, you should have personal time for like your spouse, you need to go to the gym, like you even get into like the personal stuff too? For
sure. And I think that's especially more important as they get busier and it gets harder to control. But yeah, if you looked at like, if we pulled up the Justin Landis Group agents on our calendar, you'll see people have blocked off time for go for a walk, go to the gym, whatever class. People are definitely doing that. And I think it also depends a little bit on the market. I mean, in 2021 and 2022, a lot with our top agents, almost all the time we were spending together was helping them try to have a life and sanity outside of the business because there was so much business, in times where it's harder to get the business. A lot of times it flips and we have to help people spend more time generating the business, because there's like not as much of it. But yeah, you got to find that balance. And my first coach was really helpful with me on that to try to, take that 24/7, 365 and start to carve out time that was for, my family and myself.
Yeah, that's good. And it's also smart that you switch the strategy based off of the market. If it's a good market, you can focus a little bit more on personal time. Where it's hard market, you might have to double down on the business a bit more to get the business. So,
yeah, the market's always not always, but the market changes a lot, and so there is business to be had. I mean, I was doing this in 2008 and 2009. Now, it wasn't luxury new construction. I mean, it was REOs and short sales and first-time home buyers. But there were transactions to be had, and then there's different transactions to be had at different times. But so you do have to adjust your strategy for it. I mean, a perfect example of this was, last year, houses sat on the market a lot longer. A fewer percentage sold, and they took longer to sell. And so, we got to the halfway point of the year at the Justin Landis Group, and all of our lead measures, we were beating our projections and our goals as far as leads, appointment set, listing taken. But guess what? The listings weren't selling and they were taking longer. And so you're looking at the end result and you're like, oh, even though it seems like we're doing the best work we've ever done at the top of the funnel, what's coming out the back is not the same, And so then we had to put one of the biggest things on that was like a big price drop strategy around it and a big strategy on pricing new listings that we got from that point more aggressively. And so we'd never had a strategy. In my whole time, I'd never had a strategy around price drops, really. I mean, obviously you try to get them, but not like from a corporate, holistic corporate wide. Like, hey, each week we're trying to get this amount of price drops. We had our director of operations going through with each of the agents each week, which ones they need to get price drops, helping coach them on how to do it. And it really started to like pile on. And we had a great fourth quarter. And a lot of that had to do with like we had to switch the strategy to the current market. In a market where 70 or 80% of listings are selling, you're wasting your time to have a price drop strategy. Just like get the listing and they're basically going to sell. But that wasn't the case last year.
That's interesting. So now where the organization is, like the type of planning, for example, you're 6 months in and you have to look at the numbers and be like, okay, we have to add these 2 new strategies in. Is that something that you do regularly throughout the year? Is like look at the numbers, based off the numbers, you have to kind of pivot or change like the strategies in the business?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for sure. We started this a couple years ago. I have searched to try to find like a goal setting, and I guess you kind of call it like goal setting and management philosophy or whatever. We tried a couple things. We read like the 4 disciplines of execution, and that was good, but it was kind of complicated for our business. And a couple years ago, I read Measure What Matters, and the philosophy in there is objectives and key results.
Yep.
And so objectives are like your big picture thing that you're trying to do, and then the key results are like the actual like measurable, what am I doing to achieve the objective. And so the last couple of years we've done that, and so we didn't have key results around price drops previously, but in the second half of the year, a big part of our key results were to get price drops, because that went back to the top objective of to sell 300 listings. We're like, we're not going to sell as many listings that we don't have a key. Like, we need a different strategy in the key result, because we are getting the appointments and we're taking them, which at the beginning of the year seemed like the result we needed to sell them.
And then
but then we're like, but now we're just carrying them. We're carrying 100 listings and they're not under contract.
And that gets expensive.
And it gets expensive. It takes longer. It's tough because it takes more staff effort, but you're not getting the revenue, right? I mean, like you're spending more and getting paid later. And that is definitely tough.
Yeah. And going into this, like we talked a little bit about this, but hiring in leverage, like hiring is like one of the most important things. Like Netflix has like their culture deck, and now everyone kind of like really went in on hiring. Like I think Gary Keller has a quote that you don't actually need to be really good at management if you get really good at hiring. And it's like the hiring is the big thing if you get A players into it. And so what did you learn from like hiring and getting the right people onto the team?
Yeah, so I was at Keller Williams for a long time, so learned a lot of that from Gary, and really thankful for. They used to call it Recruit Select, and then it was career visioning, and done a lot of work on that. I've had a consultant help me with that, and so we've worked hard through that. Because to your point, if you have A players, a lot of times you have to just like not mess them up. You know, I mean, if you're just like a decent manager and helpful, they're going to do great. And that's a lot easier than trying to like micromanage a C player into a great performance. And so, I mean, we've had a handful of things that have, helped us over time. We've tried to follow the humble, hungry, and smart approach to get, people who they're humble, they're hungry, and smart is like emotional intelligence. And so whenever we're trying to hire somebody, we're always running them through that framework, those three frameworks. And then on that's for the staff side. On the agent side, we added an additional one of, do they have the capacity to sell enough houses to make $100,000? And so, in capacity, sometimes people just don't have the life set up to be able to do it. It's just like, hey, this is a part-time thing, or I'm a full-time teacher, I want to just sell in the summer. And it's like, those sort of things. You can be humble, hungry, and smart, but just don't have the setup on the agent side to be able to do it. So we added that on the agent side. But those are the criteria that we're looking at when we hire, from the big, just from like a big picture that we're running it through is, hey, do we think this person is going to meet those?
That's interesting. We actually I at least did. It's like, but both of us, like intelligence, agency, and curiosity. And
they're pretty similar.
Intelligence is like the speed of change. So it's like, if you get information, does it change your behavior? So that's a little bit emotional, a little bit like behavioral.
Yep. Agency
is like being proactive instead of reactive, being able to like make your own decisions. Yep. And then curiosity is just the type of person who cares about like the 1%, trying to learn, always curious.
I love it. That's awesome.
So it's kind of interesting that you do something similar. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's helpful to have, before we had that, we'd have conversations about are we going to bring this agent on? Are we going to invite them in or whatever? And we're just like going round and round, but we didn't have anything that we were scoring. There was nothing, and still even the humble, hungry, smart is a little bit subjective, but at least it's more objective. At least it's something. And we're like have something versus I think this person, or I could see this person, or I bet this person. You're like, can't be a good way to make a decision. I think having some sort of framework that you're working through, or measuring people against to figure out if they're going to be a good fit is helpful.
Yeah, I think Amazon has that. And then they also have like one other thing where it's like, they call it the bar raiser.
Okay.
And it's like one person in the company who says, does this person raise the bar of everyone in the company or bring it down? And if they don't raise it, then that person can literally veto the hire.
Interesting. That's cool.
Interesting.
Do you use personality assessments? Use any personality assessments?
I use CVI because I was more taught on that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's more like value based. But that I kind of mix and match with like DISC.
Yeah.
What about you?
We've used the DISC a lot.
Nice.
Yeah, we've used the DISC a lot. I mean, I found that this has been interesting on the real estate agent side. I have seen people be successful with basically every DISC. I do think for certain, especially more administrative roles or sales, like pure like inside sales roles or whatever, you need to match up more on them because you got to do that. Yeah. You got to do that thing a lot of times. So it needs to be like in your natural state to be able to do it. But yeah, I've seen real estate agents succeed with absolutely every type of DISC.
If you've been liking everything from this episode, I actually made a completely free download in the description below that goes alongside. It's almost like a workbook, but it goes through actually each platform individually, YouTube, email, social, etc. And it goes into the metrics that matter, what we have proven to actually work from things like we've posted over 4,000 YouTube videos last year, sent over 1,400 newsletters. And it goes into things like what are the buckets that are actually proven to work for content on YouTube? What generates leads? What generates seller leads? What patterns have we seen? And it goes on email. What gets the highest open rate? What gets the most click? And then I go into the trends, the things that you need to stay on top of, as well as the core principles that really matter in the platform. And it's completely free. If you want to work alongside this and have something to kind of take away tactically and implement in your business, download it in the description below. It's completely free, and hopefully it helps you grow.
Do you know George Lawton in Phoenix, Arizona?
I don't think so.
Okay, so I interviewed him and his operations person, and he said kind of like that. It's like every real estate team wants to hire the Ds because they're ambitious, they're driven, and that's like because they're that, so they know how to coach that. But the thing is, if that's the only type of person you can bring on the team, you've now limited your pool. Yeah. And that's interesting.
Well, and also on that, because that was part of the teaching at Keller Williams was like they had like the ideal DISC for different roles, and the ideal DISC for agents is the D to get stuff done. Well, early on, we were primarily doing that. Another thing about having a lot of Ds at the same place, I mean, they butt heads. I mean, like they all want to be the top one, Only one person can be the actual top. And so, I mean, that was, found that kind of interesting as we were doing it. And so we started to be like, well, hey, who fits into what we offer? And this was earlier on. We didn't have the Humble, Hungry, Smart yet. But we were like, the thing that at that point early on, we were like, we are really good at generating buyer leads. And so we have lots and lots of buyer leads. We were doing this, online and through relationships. And so it's like, hey, this is a different person than it is if you're producing, all these listing appointments. Yeah? And so like, who would be a good fit for wanting to do this? And so, I mean, sometimes you have to match that up a little bit, even though, yes, the ideal real estate agent portfolio or profile is probably a DI, but that might not be the best person to convert the buyer's appointments that we have.
Because the buyer lead might want the more like nurturing relationship type person.
Yeah, they want the relationship. You got to be steady on it. Like it takes longer. A lot of times we're finding the Ds are getting frustrated that the buyers are like, buy a house already, It's like, they've only looked at like 5 of them. I think they could probably look at a few more. It's okay. So yeah, you got to like match them up a little bit.
That's interesting. And I'm curious because now sitting on the other side of like client acquisition, talent acquisition, you realize it's literally just a mirror of the same coin, and it's a volume game.
Yeah.
And like that's the only reason why I understand it now. Like, what have you learned through going through? I'm sure you've had hundreds of interviews, thousands of applications. So.
Yeah, it is you're talking like how similar it is to grow the sales business and like grow the talent side, the recruiting side. Yeah, man. I mean, I think you got to, as you think about on growing like your organization, especially on the real estate agent, it's a little different. It's different than hiring for a job, right? I mean, like when you're hiring for a job, you're paying oddly, on the real estate agent, like to the brokerage, the agent is paying the brokerage. So really, like the agent is the client of the brokerage. So even though the broker will say, I hired this agent, we hired them, but they're paying us. So, it's not exactly the same. So there is like a bit of like, not bit, there's a whole sales aspect to it, just like trying to generate business. And a lot of things are the same. You got to have a lot of conversations with people. You got to learn your offer and pitch, just like you would on a listing appointment or buyer consult, because if people don't like your offer and pitch, then you're going to convert a really low percentage of it. And doing it over time is really advantageous, just like doing it over time to generate business. An agent that you met with 2 years ago that didn't join, who now is unhappy about a current situation and calls you, they can't do that if you didn't have the meeting 2 years ago, and just like you built a relationship with someone, they decided it wasn't time to sell, they call you back 2 years later, or you worked with them 5 years ago, they call you back. So doing it over a long period of time is also really helpful because people's situation changes and it might not have been time for them to move. And now it is time for them to move. So I think there's tons of parallels with that. And I also think there's a parallel on like the focus. You got to set goals around how many conversations you're having and how many appointments and focus on it. And when you do that, you're way more likely to grow the agent, grow your agent count.
That's what I was going to ask you next is like, do you have different goals for like the agent side and like, okay, here's our goals that we want to hit throughout the year? Yeah,
for sure. And we have them at the Justin Landis Group and at Bolst. And it's a much more specific agent at the Justin Landis Group because it's a more specific system to work in. So it's a smaller number. But Jared Thomas, my long-term business partner on the JOG side, I mean, he has every week, he has he calls them exploratories, but exploratory calls, that's like a phone conversation that's not a 2-minute call, but like 15 to 30 minute, like get to know. He's got that, then he's got his in-person goal, and then he's got his monthly goal for the number of people to add. And he's done that for years. And it's kind of maybe boring to do the same thing over and over, but it's very effective. I mean, if you do it, that's what it takes to grow the organization. And then, on the Bolst recruiting side, have 2 offices, the managing brokers there. They each have the same thing for their goals to be able to recruit and add agents to the brokerage too.
Okay. So it sounds like you also have a multi-step hiring. It's like exploratory call is just like, let's get a feel for if it's aligned on both sides and should even move forward. Yeah. I mean, we want it to be a good fit in both directions, and especially on the team. The team invests a lot of resources up front on folks. And so this was a decision we made pretty long time ago, and this teams can go both ways, and I can definitely see the side on the other side. We spend a lot of time hiring in hopes of having really high retention, whereas some teams will go like, hey, bring them in, and in the first 90 days we'll figure out whether they're good or not. And if a lot of people don't make it and aren't willing to do it, and you have turnover there. And, I can see the pro of that is like, hey, by the time you get to the 90 days, you're going to, like, there's no better way to know than to, like, do it and see them actually do it. But from a culture standpoint, because we had such low turnover, especially the first, 5 or 6 years, the rocking the boat with lots of new people coming and going all the time didn't seem like a fit for our business. So we have a much longer hiring process on the agent side, on the team, where there's that exploratory call, and then we ask them to do a personality assessment. We do what we call a comprehensive. That's usually like an hour and a half or 2 hours, like tell their life story, go through their assessment. We still haven't gotten that much into real estate. Yeah. Then we have another, we call it the commitment interview, where we'll actually get into all the details of the numbers and how the team works. They've already spent 2 or 3 hours with us at this point, and we haven't gone over splits and anything like that. And then at that point, we're trying to see, like, if we make them an offer, will they say yes? And then from there, we'll call their references. We'll have them meet with other team members. And so it's a long process to actually get on the team, which does turn. It's not that there's zero turnover, and it's not that 100% of people always work out, but it's a lot higher retention rate than we talked to you one time, come in on Wednesday and start making phone calls, see how it goes, so it's just a different philosophy on it. Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm sure you hear this a lot, talking to a lot of different team leaders, agents who want to grow a team. There seems to be a very big divide in it where it's like, look, I don't want to just hire a ton of agents to the team. I want to have them retain. I want retention.
Yep.
And there's this thought that like, okay, I just don't want to bring on a ton of agents and going at it slow. But then also, if you want to grow, some people say you just have.
You got to have more agents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there's a definite tension there, and I have fallen on my career on both sides. We have hired faster. We were in a couple, big growth mode a couple times, and we hired faster than we honestly were probably able to serve the agents well. Like to have the right number of leads for them and the right number of support for them, because there is like an ideal match. If you're providing leads, there's an ideal match where if you don't have enough leads for the agents, then you're not bringing your pull to it, and if you have too many, then they don't convert them at a high enough percentage because they get overwhelmed or they cherry pick or whatever. So like you do, like ideally, if your team's providing leads, you do need to match those, and you got to match the support. And so we've had that. We've also, because coming off of that, like you overswing the pendulum, like we're hiring too fast, too many people. Then you slow it down, and then you're like, oh, we're not growing because sometimes people leave. And even if people aren't leaving to go somewhere else, it's like, oh, this person moved to Florida. This person moved to Virginia. This person became a stay-at-home parent. Things were going great on the team. It's not like they didn't like us or we had like some falling out, but it's just like not everyone's going to do this forever. And so if you're not hiring, you face going the opposite direction. So you got to find that, balance. And so, right now at JOG, we're working to bring in one new agent per month. And then we have a handful, that are probably going to transition out. And that allows us to go up 6 or 8 agents this year. We're at about like 30 agents now. So, our goal is to have 36 by the end of the year. And so that's like nice. The balance where we are currently. We've definitely been in phases where we jumped faster than that. Been in phases where we've hired a little slower than that, but that's our current, our current balance on it.
And just out of curiosity, this is a little more in the weeds, but do you track like churn, retention, like numbers? For
sure, both at the team and at the brokerage. And at the brokerage, it's a little hard. I don't know, harder is the word, but it's different at the brokerage because, so we have about 300 agents that are independent brokerage. And so you can't have the same level of relationship as with the 30 agents on the team, but you still want to retain them and support them and provide, value for what they're paying and all that. And so we saw a lot more attrition last year than we had. The brokerage, we started at the end of 2021. So there's a couple of advantages of a brokerage being new. One, when people join, unless it's really bad, they don't usually leave like 6 months or 3 months after they came, right? So like we're having very little turnover there because people are new. And then, the market was good in 2021 and beginning of 2022. But as the market's gotten more challenging, we saw a lot of people last year that were like part-time or not selling all, like get another job and like move their license inactive and that sort of stuff. And it's individually the right decision for each of them. And so happy with them and support them in that. But as far as like the turnover goes, that's tough. If you start to lose, I think last year we had 25% turnover. If you have 75 people that leave, and very few of those are leaving to go to other brokerages. It's mostly people like giving up on real estate or going to referral status. Is like, man, you got to recruit a lot of people to grow from that. Like you've got to be on like the heavy recruiting to still be in the positive on that. So yeah, especially at the brokerage. So there's a little bit of difference at the team at the brokerage, but at the brokerage level, you have got to be always recruiting to to grow the brokerage.
Now that you're like saying all this, it's so interesting because you see it at the team level and you see it at the organization level, and you're just always kind of seeing both sides, and that's, I feel like, a very interesting perspective to be able to have.
Yeah, I think, one of the an advantage of having both of them is that, a lot of times people think they want to be on a team, or in the Justin Awareness groups have been around longer and that sort of stuff, and so people will think they want to be on a team, and it's actually not the right fit for them. And so it's great that a lot of times the brokerage can be the right fit for them, and we have something that we can help them get plugged into that's still going to help them. So that's one of the ways that they really work nicely together.
Nice.
I mean, we're not trying to we don't have to fit somebody into a certain thing. It's like whatever's a better fit for them, we can help them get there.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the saying like the messy middle, like between like 30 and 100, it gets a little tough?
Yes. There used to be there's a really active messy middle Facebook group for a long time, wasn't there? I think on the real estate page.
I don't know.
Yeah. But yes, I'm definitely familiar with that term, and that is messy. Yeah.
Well, what is your experience with that? Like talking to the teams in that, because you've been through that. Now you guys are on the other side.
I think that there's a little bit of deciding, what do I want? What do I want to do? I mean, do I want to break through to be team leader or business owner, or because I think it can be simpler and financially potentially better to just be not just, I shouldn't have said that, because this is awesome, to be a great master practitioner with a great small team around you. You can produce a really high profit margin on that, and a great dollar per hour and a great life. And a lot of times people enjoy that more than the breaking through to, I've got all these people, all this stuff to manage. We've got a 401k. We've got health insurance benefits. Our health insurance premium went up 18% this year. I'm dealing with all of that sort of, dealing with all that sort of stuff as well, which you don't have to deal with that if you're going to be a great master practitioner. So I think a lot of it is looking at it and deciding, what do I really want? Yeah. And then am I going to commit to going there? Because if you really want to be team leader or business owner, you've got to commit to that recruiting and growing the organization and doing all that other stuff that comes boring with it. That is
it's not the most fun.
Either boring or takes away from sales or whatever. But you got to be your own finance department, and you got to do HR, and you got to just have all of that stuff that comes with running a business or an organization. And some people love it. I mean, you see it on, I feel like I am way more suited to be doing what I'm currently doing than I was to sell houses. But that's not the case for everybody. Some people, they're way better at selling houses than I was, and that's probably what they should do.
And just because you've seen probably a wide mix, can you maybe give a range? You don't have to give specifics, sure. But for general, this is what small team profit margin, you can maybe have 50 to 80%. If you start building a mega team, you're going to have to start looking at maybe you're in the 20 to 40% range. And you start going bigger, you might have to go lower. I'm just curious, your perspective on that.
I mean, if you're an individual agent who's just paying your brokerage a cap split and you're generating all the business yourself, I was actually doing this with had this great mastermind group of individual agents at Bolst that I meet with once a month, and we were working on our business. We actually went to Lake House and worked on our business planning, and they were really cool to open up their books and share them with each other or whatever. And one guy's profit margin was 83%, and I was like, well, on one hand, that's amazing. On the other hand, I think if there was an investor in your business, they might ask you to actually invest some of that profit to grow the.
There's a little bit of risk.
Yes, you might actually want to invest some of that to grow the business. But if you're the individual agent who's generating your business relationally, you can keep a lot of it. I mean, you can keep that 60, 83 is a lot, but you can keep that 60, 70% of it. As you start to have a team, if the big shift comes when you have someone else who is working some of the transactions, right? Because you have your first buyer's agent, say, for example, if they're getting 50%, well, right there's 50%. Yeah. Where you used to be getting 100, and that completely shifts. And so then you start to have that. You're like, hey, if I'm doing a good amount of the sales myself, I still might be able to keep in that 40% range or something like that, because some of my sales I'm getting 100. When you first move out of production, that's when it really switches. And so, I remember the year that I first moved out of production, we sold 40 more houses the following year, but I only made $40,000 more, even though we sold 40 more houses, because I didn't keep 100% of anything. Yeah. Someone was getting a split of every single deal.
Every single dollar.
Because I didn't sell any houses. And so you got to generate a lot more business. And so then you're down to the point. This is, I'll call it large team size, and the 10 to 15 agents. Then that's where you can get that 20 to 25% is possible, because you don't have to have middle management and an HR department and all that sort of, like, we do have HR now and we've got middle management, and then your margins are coming down. And then I think, like, hey, can you get in that like 10 to 15% range as a comfortable place? Because if you're down like in the low single digits, it's just like, it's risky. I mean, like, you're right there on the edge of it going in the opposite, direction. But I think that's kind of like where, as you look at it, and I remember one year at, am I going to get these right? One year at KW, they asked if people would be willing to turn in their P&L so they could get like an average on it. I want to say for teams selling more than 200 houses, it was like in the mid to high teens was the profit margin to teams that size. And most of those agents are out of production, what you're doing. But if you look at that compared to, especially as prices have increased, somebody who's selling 20 or 30 houses at a high profit margin and, generally doing it relationally, has an assistant, that team selling 200 houses might not be making more money or that much more money with a lot more to manage.
Yeah, we were talking about that at dinner a little bit. It's like sometimes for some agents, like you said, it just might not make sense for you to build bigger than like a small team yourself. So
I love I don't think I phrased this term either, but the micro team. Yeah, where if you have a great licensed assistant, so they can do agent stuff for you, right? I mean, they can do a showing if they need to. They can do write a contract for you, do all that sort of stuff. You have another admin, and then you have one other agent. That is not that expensive. It's not that big a structure to manage. It's not that expensive. And they can do almost everything. Because if you have that other agent, if you want them to take a buyer, they can. Your licensed assistant can do 90% of the work on the listing side. I mean, other than secure the business and negotiate the contract, they can do all of that. So you can have a really great lifestyle and profit margin on that micro team. And you still have multiple levels of, I don't like to get the job back. That's always like, especially when we started the brokerage, and it's like there's one person finance department, and I'm like, if this person leaves or doesn't work out, who is cutting the commission checks?
That's a key man risk.
I think it's me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be doing that. It's like, hey, we have one broker. If this broker leaves, who is the broker? Oh, it's me, So
you're like 500 commission checks. You got up to 300 agents. That's 300 commission checks.
Yeah, it's like, so, I mean, but I think at the micro team level there, if you've got those two people on the admin side, you have one or two agents, it's like, hey, if one person leaves, it's not all falling apart. It's not all back to me. It's still like manageable. You don't have to have HR and benefits and you don't have to have office space, all that sort of stuff. And so I think that can be like a really awesome place for an agent to be.
Yeah, I think the micro team is going to be an interesting thing to look at the next few years.
Yeah, I agree.
Curious, we were talking a little earlier, like what was the consideration and the things that you had to like weigh when you're like moving from the team, I think you had about 50 agents at the time, to making the call to be like, let's go to a brokerage?
Yeah. So I'll back up a little bit there because this leads to what led to that. We had a lot of, at the Justin Landis group, mission-minded, like purpose-based type people at the organization. And we were trying to do some things to like use the business for good, but we hadn't found our thing. They weren't that successful. And then we had this idea to do this one campaign that was like crazy successful and like change our trajectory, which eventually led to the brokerage. And we called it 90 and 90. So at the time, KW was doing this 90 and 90 thing. They were trying to get like 90 listings. People were trying to get 90 listings in 90 days or 90 buyers. And we were like, oh, one of the agents on our team, Grace, she was like, we should do the 90 buyers in 90 days. And you should try to tie some like charity component to it. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. We had never sold 90 buyers in 90 days. I mean, that was like a definite stretch for us. We never done any fundraising. But we were like, what if we tried to do 90 and 90 and it was raise $90,000 to fight homelessness and do 90 buyers in 90 days. And so we're like, all right, well, how could we do that? And so we set out to try to do it. And here's what we did on the fundraising side. And this was a game changer. We still do this. It was eye-opening. We went to all our transaction partners. So that's lender, attorney, home inspector, mover, natural gas company, home warranty company, inspector, stager, like everybody. And we were like, hey, over the next 90 days, if we do a transaction together, we're going to make a donation to fight homelessness. Our agents are all going to do it. Will you do the same thing? 100% yes. And the generosity of people, I mean, it was amazing. I'll never forget our insurance. I almost didn't ask our insurance agent. They don't make a lot per policy, you know? I mean, like they're not making that much up front. And I was like, I don't even know if I want to ask him. And I asked him, you know, but I did, because I was like, I'm asking everybody this. And he was like, yeah, I'll do like $100 per policy. And I was like, Matt, isn't that about what you make on the policy? And he was like, yeah, about. And I was like, why are you doing that? And he was like, I just love what you're doing. This is so cool. I'm excited to be a part of it. And I was like, that's pretty awesome, you know? And so just like the display of generosity from everybody was really neat. And we started doing it, and it was like such a motivator for the team to like be a part of it. And we came down to the end. I will never forget this, because this is the best day of my business career. Coming into the 90th day, we had 88 pending contracts and 3 offers out. So we needed to get 2 of the 3 accepted on the 90th day to hit 90. And we got the 90th at 4:09. I still remember the exact time, because I was jumping up and down in the office when we got the call. And so we got our 90 buyers in 90 days. We raised over $90,000, which was awesome. We donated that money to an organization here in Atlanta, the Atlanta Mission, which fights homelessness and is an amazing organization. They had the idea. They're like, this is a really cool story. Why don't we tell our donor pool about this and challenge them to double that 90? One person made a $100,000 donation in response to that campaign. It raised $180,000 more dollars, $270,000 in total. And we were like, oh, wow. Purpose-based business is good business. Yeah. This is the way to do it. This is our thing. And we changed the motto of the Justin Landis Group to "Everyone Deserves a Dream Home." We started doing these campaigns. I started teaching all around at different brokerages and offices and asking people to come be a part of it. We had next year 100 agents do one with us. And we got to the point where this leads to the brokerage transition, that we were like, hey, we want to take the good we're doing to another level. We felt like we needed to do that somewhere else. And we were looking for a different financial setup than we had. And we were not planning to start our own brokerage when we started this. And so I went out and interviewed at other brokerages, which I had never done, because I loved the brokerage we were at. I did have a couple observations. One of my observations was like, oh, there are good brokerages. There's like a good amount of like the brokerages we're meeting with, like, these are good businesses. But the thing that we kept running into, and this is why we eventually decided to do our own thing, is we at the Justin Landis Group wanted to be at the Patagonia, Tom's, Ben & Jerry's. I
was going to say that, Patagonia,
Chick-fil-A, Clean Canteen of real estate brokerages, where the business existed to do good. The business was doing good business, but the business actually existed to do good. That was like the whole point of the business. And we were like, there is not a Patagonia of real estate brokerages. If there was, maybe would other people join? And so then we're like, all right, maybe we should do it. And so that like kicked off the idea, and we're like, hey, could we do it? Would it be good? And so because of that, we decided to start Bolst in the fall of 2021. And Bolst is I'm sure we'll get into this, it is the actual corporate structure for any business, from a business standpoint, is Benefit Corporation. It was a new corporate structure that year in Georgia. So it's taxed and governed like a C Corp, but it has a public benefit that is above shareholder value. So to make sure that, we never get pressure from the shareholders of like, hey, you need to stop making these donations. You need to stop spending all this time serving. You need to stop doing these programs that don't make us as much money. And so the public benefit is to decrease homelessness and increase home ownership in underserved communities. And so we put that into the corporate docs and the corporate charter. We launched Bolst in the fall of 2021, like you said, with about 50 agents. And so then we just started like, hey, can we do this and see how it goes? And so that was like the beginning of Bolst. The mission of Bolst is housing for everyone, and we've been working to try to do great business, but to use the business to do good.
Interesting. And I'm curious, because those are actually literally two analogies that I was going to talk about. It was like Patagonia and Tom's. And I was curious, did you get any inspiration from that? Or
yeah, definitely. I read, have you read the book Let My People Go Surfing?
I don't think I
have.
It's
the founder of Patagonia. It's like a mix of autobiography and business philosophy. And it's called that because at Patagonia's main office on Ventura Beach, behind the receptionist, they have the surf conditions. And when the surf is good, people can leave. You can leave the office and you can just go surf. And they were like super early on they had daycare on site in the 70s. And they've just like always been like really progressive for people and for the world. I mean, the mission of Patagonia is to save the planet. And after reading that book, I just thought, oh man, this is how I want to do business. I mean, they're growing a successful, profitable, awesome business, but they're taking care of people. They're making an impact, and they started to inspire the whole industry. Patagonia started 1% for the planet, which they give 1% of their revenue to environmental causes, which is cool that Patagonia does it. But the cooler thing is there are thousands of other companies that now do it that have been inspired by that generosity and that start. Yeah. And we're like, oh man, like that's the kind of thing we want to try to do in real estate. We got a long ways to be Patagonia, but to inspire generosity from people and help the industry do more good and be more generous and make an impact. And so, yeah, I'm a huge Patagonia fan and supporter. And I don't know, do you know that he gave the entire business away? Patagonia is now a non-profit. He gave
I did not know that.
Yeah, instead of giving the business to his kids or selling the business, gave the business away, paid a huge tax bill to do it, and Patagonia is now owned by a trust, and so all the profits of Patagonia are given away. And that hadn't happened at the time he wrote that original book. But yeah, I've just always been like inspired by the generosity there and the focus on like making a difference in the world through business.
And I was curious, like, where does this all, like, why? Like, where does it all stem from for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest stem is, I love Jesus. I have a strong faith, and I want to love the world and do good and, help people. And that's where, like, it super stems from me. And then I felt like, from a business standpoint, that I've had some success, and I feel partially like I've been given some of that success to help other people with it. And there's different ways to help other people. This is maybe a cool story someone could, that might resonate with someone. I had gotten to the point, this is before I started the team, but this is all going to tie in. We'll see here.
I think it will.
All right, we'll see. So, I was coming off of I was an individual agent and was working all the time. I think I sold 55 houses the year before, and this is pre-buyer's agent or showing assistant. I mean, there was the internet, but people are not signing contracts on their phone. You got to like stop in at a Starbucks. And so it was just like working all the time to do it. My wife got pregnant with our first, and I could see my pipeline was better for the next year. And I was like, I'm not going to have enough time I cannot physically going to be able to work the business that I have. And so I was like, I got to do either one of two things. And I was like, I'll either scale back, have a more boutique business, or I need to bring people on to help. And the broker at our office at the time, she's an awesome lady. She's an awesome lady. Her name's Robin Matthews. And we were talking about it. And I was kind of sharing my plans. And she asked me, she said, well, Justin, if you brought a buyer's agent, how would they do? And I was like, oh, they do great. I mean, the business is all referrals. And so it's friends of friends. It's a good, easy business. And I don't know if I'm a good boss, but like, it's not a toxic environment to be around me. I'm a pretty nice person, and I was like, so I think it'd be pretty good. And then she asked me this question. She was like, well, Justin, if you have that opportunity, if you could provide that opportunity for someone and you don't, are you doing everything with what God's given you? And I was like, maybe I do have this business to help others, not just like make money for myself. And I mean, I kind of feel ashamed a little bit I had not thought of that to say it or whatever, but it just like really hit me. I was like, maybe that is why I'm good at generating business. Maybe that's why I have a lot of business, is to be able to help other people. And that was like the thought process that started the Justin Landis group that helped, bring other people on. And so from that, and then seeing at JLG, I mean, we talked about like the 5, 10, 20 and seeing people succeed. It was just like, I was like, hey, I think like one of the things that like I am either gifted towards or, in this position to do is to help other people through the business. And so the extension of like, at first, because the business was me, we're talking about like following people around and talking on the phone. Like there's not a lot of business to use for good, but once it got to a certain size, it's like, hey, the business has resources in addition to me. now way more resources in addition to me. Like, what if we used it all for good? We're trying to like help the agents and, you know, clients that come in. We're trying to use the resources of the business to influence the industry and help other people. And so that's like kind of full circle of like why, you know, why we wanted to do it.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because it seems like at every level, you're always doing something for the good. And there's just like the level of resources just change at each one.
Yeah.
So, cool. Yeah, that was like, I was just curious because usually there's somewhere that sometimes that stems from. So, when someone is looking at like the brokerage model and they're like, okay, I can decide to go it or I can stick with where I'm at. What are the things that maybe you didn't know or things that you had to learn differently to be able to build the brokerage?
Man, that is such a great question. Yeah, if you're an agent or a team and you're thinking about the brokerage, maybe you'll have think it out better than I did. I mean, I completely underestimated how hard it was going to be. So kudos to the brokerages out there. And I don't know why I thought that, but when I started doing real estate, you know, as an agent, it's like, got no resources, no money, no staff. And we're like, well, this time, like, we can fund this business and we can hire staff right off the bat. And we've seen it for, 15 years. Surely it won't be that hard. And then we got into it and we're like, oh, this is a very detailed and very transactional business, right? I mean, the brokerage business, especially like we run a capped model, so the agents have a cap each year. It's a high volume, low margin business. So you got to have a lot of transactions and a lot of agents. And so you got to do things well a lot of times. And a couple of things that I completely underestimated was one, so Bolst is not a franchise. And so like there was no model.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, are there back-end softwares out there? Yes, but a bunch of them. Which one are we going to pick? Is there a transaction, software out there? Yes, but which one are we going to pick? How are we going to get the contracts in? How are we going to get so there's just like all these little things that, man, I just underestimated how hard it was going to be to like do those and figure them out. I mean, we changed, our financial software a year and a half in because it wasn't good. And you're like, that sort of stuff. The big companies are not changing their software every like year and a half, right? Yeah. So that I underestimated. And then this might be interesting for team leaders if you're trying to grow, because if you're trying to grow in a general brokerage. So I have the team and then we have the general brokerage. I mean, almost all the agents are not on there. That's different than teamerage, right? Mm-hmm. If you're like, hey, I'm going to bring the brokerage in-house, just try to keep the margins, bring the team in, that's a little bit different. But here, going for general agents, I started meeting with agents. We started the brokerage and I'm doing all the outbound recruiting and calling and meeting with people. And I'm meeting with a lot of individual agents. And they're asking me, I'm asking them questions and I'm hearing from them and they're asking me questions. And I realized I was like, oh, I'm out of touch with the individual agent. I actually don't have a good understanding of what's important to them and what a good value prop is. And I had gotten that way, I think, because my peers, like the people I was around and seeking to be around, were all team leaders. And so they all had teams. And then at the Justin Landis Group, we have recruited mostly brand new agents. And so I do note the new agents, they need training and mentorship and business. And that's basically it. So it's a very direct value prop, right? So, I mean, like that's easy. But the agent who's selling 5 to 10 houses a year, they have a wide range of other things that they care about. It might be the splits, or it might be the marketing, or it might be the admin, or it might be the office location, or it might be how is the sign getting in the ground, or where's the lockbox? And I got some of these questions and I was like, how's the sign getting in the ground? I don't know. I mean, like that doesn't really matter. Like in my mind, I'm like, that doesn't really matter. But it does matter. It mattered to them. And so I was like, well, it matters to them. It needs to matter to me. So, when we started the brokerage, I think my goal, we launched it in it was like end of August or September. My goal is to have 100 agents by the end of the year. And I mean, we brought on like 8 or something, I mean, we started with 50, but we added like maybe 8. And I was like, oh boy, this is like not good. And then the same thing. I mean, the next year, I am going on tons of appointments. I'm getting tons of no's. The good thing about doing that though, face to face, is I'm hearing people and I'm writing it down. And then I'm coming back to the team and it's like, hey, people need support on the admin side. Let's build out leverage for them. And we build out leverage. And then so when I start to get that objection or whatever, oh yeah, I got you. You know, it's great. And then I'm hearing about marketing. It's like, all right, well, we'll build out the marketing. And so I think that those were the two big things I underestimated. Well, and then I'll go to third. The first thing was just like how hard it is. Two, that I didn't understand what our value prop, like what the value prop of Bolst was, because one of the big value props was that this is a benefit corporation, and that was a great door opener. But that's not what people are not switching brokerages because of that. Like they're curious about it, and like I think it's a definite positive, and people want to be a part of it. It's been a huge culture builder. It's been really great for retention, but people are independent contractors and they need to make a living. And so they're, asking other questions. I think the third thing that I didn't understand at first was about the brand. Mm-hmm. So the Justin Landis group had an established and I think really good brand and reputation, but Bolst was brand new. And so people are like, Bolst, what is Bolst? And people are like, I'm going to leave Sotheby's to go to Bolst? Those are not like on the same level, you know? I mean, like those are not even that they are now, but it's like, well, people wanted, especially a lot of the individual agents wanted to have the established brand. Whereas since I had built my own brand on the team, I'm like, well, I mean, the brand of the brokerage doesn't matter. It's the Justin Landis group. We could be at any brokerage and that's irrelevant. But a lot of the individual agents wanted to associate with a great brand. And we're like, it maybe hurt a little bit or like just had to realize like, Bolst does not have a great brand yet. I hope it's going to have a great brand, but 1 month in, when people had never heard of the word before, it was not a great brand. And that took me a little bit by surprise. I mean, that's back to the individual agent value prop, but one of the things they wanted was a strong brand behind them. And this brand was brand new, and that's not strong. So all those things, there was a lot of learning there. And it's a whole separate business. So like I've got a whole separate staff. That's a big thing. So I think to wrap this up, or maybe wrap it up, try to land this plane a little bit. If you're in a team and you're thinking I want to do my own brokerage, I think the couple reasons to potentially do it would be, one, you just have a passion for whatever it is. Like there's something passionate about it of I want to start this business, or for us, I want to have a bigger platform for doing good. Because, and back to why that, like the Justin Landis group at 30 agents, Justin Landis is not going to 300 agents. It's not going to 500. It's not going to 1,000. The business model doesn't work that way. But Bolst, I want Bolst to be at 500, 1,000. And then just like the impact's bigger. It's like a bigger organization can have a bigger impact. So I think there's like, hey, do I have a reason for it? And then two, I think the other argument, and I'm not trying to do this, but I think you could make an argument, the brokerage is more sellable. I mean, there's more of a market to sell it down the line. So if you want to build something to sell, I think the argument could be made there of like, hey, let's go the brokerage route, try to grow it to a certain size, and then potentially sell it. But if you're focused on the team, doing a teamerage or going to, a brokerage where you can get rev share and stock, I think for a lot of people, the upside of that relative to the effort probably makes a lot of sense.
Interesting. And I found it interesting that you ask a lot of agents, because you're interviewing a lot and you're asking a lot of questions, and it kind of made you realize like, what is our value prop? But there's a lot of information that you're getting. And I'm curious, like, how did you kind of start to decipher like, okay, this is good, we should pull this in and do this, versus like, this one might not be like the best bet for us to go with?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I think if you asked my staff, they would say that I jumped around all over the place and changed my mind after every interview, depending on whatever the person said, which I probably did. There's definitely some recency bias to it. But I think over time, I mean, just seeing it. And then one of the things that, this is definitely one of my styles, is I will offer things to people that we're then going to have to fulfill, and that kind of makes you do it a little bit, And it's like, hey, well, what if I did your what if we had free transaction coordination for a year? Would that help you get over the line? Do we have transaction coordination at this point in the brokerage? No, we don't. Am I confident we could if this person came? Yes, I'll make it happen, And so I started to like make offers to people. and see like, hey, if we had this, if we could do this for you, you know, like would that change the
testing the market,
change the thing? Yeah, to test the market to see like what would actually move would people actually say yes for it, you know? And I definitely did that a handful of times with stuff, but I don't think that one of my strengths is I like to try a lot of things and I get really excited about ideas and I have a lot of ideas. It can also be a weakness on that side of jumping around. I love to read books and I love to get new ideas and I love to tell the team about them. I had 2 separate people, I'm not making this up, in our end of year reviews, you know, like where I'm giving them the review, they're also giving me feedback. 2 people asked me not to read books this year. I mean, what are the odds of that, you know? And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, we have got a great thing going here. Let us just do the work and keep going forward and stop bringing us all these other ideas. Like you think it like, and they're doing this in a very constructive, nice way, you know, and I'm laughing about it, but it's like, you're bringing us these ideas that are pulling us off course. You know, let's just stay the course and do the work. The stuff we're doing is good. And I mean, I think there's a lot of wisdom. I appreciate the feedback. There's wisdom in that because you do have to, like if you do the same thing forever and you don't change with the market or the times or whatever, you'll get left behind. So you got to find new stuff, but you can't always chase the new thing. So you got to find that balance there, you know, of like, hey, what new stuff are we going to do and what things do we need to just be really good at and boring and do them, you know, and grow the business.
The reason that like hit me was because I've had 2 conversations. One was a little earlier, like a month ago, and then most lately was like Clayton, and he was like, hey, like you're sharing all this information, but it's kind of overwhelming the team. And I heard someone else like say that he is another founder who's like 8 figures, and he had a coach, and he basically was told you're idea dumping on the team. And you stop doing that.
I have definitely been guilty of that. That's your nature too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I've heard it from 2 people, so I'm going to take a step back. And
how are you doing with it? Are you succeeding?
Yeah. Basically, because I had Slack channels for different things, and I would like learn the things and I would put it in there. I thought I was like trying to teach them the same thing that I was learning, but I realized they weren't learning at the same speed that I was, and they didn't care about the same things I did. And I didn't always translate it to them. And there was just like a sea of information. And so I was like, cool, I'm not going to do that. And instead, I'm just going to do very minimal, not minimal in a bad way, but like be very intentional on like when I do that. So.
Have you found an outlet for who to talk to or where to share that thing? I am struggling with that. It's like, I'm not going to not read books because I love to do it. I am doing a good job of not dumping the ideas, but I want to talk to somebody. Like I want to talk to somebody about it. I need like my partner. I need somebody
like a sparring partner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So maybe we need to get on a little rhythm of like our ideas, throwing them at each other.
I'd be more than happy to. I've started to like just do it through a different lens. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have my own private Slack channels just to myself, and then I'm gonna like have like a monthly investor update. And I'll share like a very concise amount of information and trying to figure out it's still along the way.
Yeah, so. That's cool. I like that.
But not to go on that tangent.
That was good. I mean, that's so funny. That is so funny.
But I was curious because running a business is hard. Being an agent is hard. And we talked about it earlier, like having boundaries, caring about your health, your family, you're big on faith. And I'm curious, there's definitely different seasons in life for different things, but how have you kind of found like, okay, I'm going to integrate all of these things and allow them to be able to like coexist and not have to sacrifice on some of the big things?
Yeah. It's a definite challenge. And, you know, when I started out, and I think this is pretty common for new real estate agents, and I won't say it's 100% necessary, but it definitely helps you grow your business faster if you work a lot and say yes early on, you know? And so like you start doing all this stuff and you're doing it, and then you're doing a lot. And I remember I was at the point where, you know, I was talking about working all the time and what I was going to do, but I was working all the time and I got a coach that year And the main thing I wanted the coach to help me with was to figure out what you're saying here is like the schedule and stuff. So one of the first things he challenged me on, he was like, I want you to take a day off. And I had not taken actually, not just like no appointments, but like actually off, not any work. And I was like, I can't remember the last time I did this. But I picked 2 Sundays out. I was going to take the day off. And, so I didn't have anything scheduled. And I didn't have any new listings that week. But I did have like existing listings. Lo and behold, I got 2 offers on one house on that Saturday, multiple offers, a house that was on the market, which is really unlikely. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm not going to not respond to these and just like leave the clients hanging and let them fall. So I, worked on Sunday and got the stuff worked out. And so I talked to him that week. And he was like, how'd Sunday go? And I was like, well, I failed. And he's like, what do you mean you failed? And I told him what happened. He's like, are you ready to make a change and change your life so that this doesn't happen anymore? And I was like, yes, I'm ready to make a change. And he's like, all right, we're going to do it. And so that like started the process there. And he was really instrumental in helping me start to build stuff out. And we didn't try to do it all at once where it's like, I'm going from working 7 days a week all the time to I'm not working any nights and weekends. But we started to chunk down some little things. And one of the things I found out early on, if you are in that phase of working a lot, is a small amount of intentional protected time is often more valued by your friends and family members than a big amount of time where you're not actually there. Yeah. Where you're physically there, but you're not actually there because you're thinking about something else and you're on your phone and you're stepping out. And so one of the first things that we did there was I would stop. It's kind of crazy now that I think about it, but this is actually really effective. So I would park like a block from the house if I was coming from somewhere else. And I'd pull my phone out and I'd respond to anything that I needed to respond to. And then I would meditate for a couple minutes to clear my mind. And then when I pull up to the house and when I came in, that way I only had one daughter at the time, my daughter and wife, I was there. So I've cleared my mind from work. I have responded to things. So I had this bad habit of walking in the door and like my little daughter's running. I'm like, just a second, I got to go to the computer and like respond. And you're like, this is not what I want Dad to come home to be like, And so started to do that. And this doesn't mean that I'm not working at all that evening or whatever, but it's like, hey, when I first come home, you're getting me and I'm getting you and there's presence there. At that same time, I would turn my phone off or on silent and put it in a drawer during dinner. Dinner might only be 15 minutes. Like, once again, I'm not saying like all of a sudden I stopped working at night, but I'm trying to like break down this intentional time. I'm doing dinner. Then I'm going to do bedtime. So, from 8 to 8:30, I'm going to read to my daughter. I'm not going to have my phone. And so I started to just like chunk down these little pieces of time and be intentional. And that was really helpful. And it also helped me to see that like, hey, in a half-hour period, things are basically fine. Someone called at 8:02, but I called it back at 8:34. I'm not losing that business. And if I am, this person is crazy. And it's probably okay anyway, Yeah. And so I started to just like build more things like that where it's like, hey, and now I'm not going to do showings on Sunday. And so that doesn't mean I'm not working at all, but I'm not doing showings. And it's just like I started to back that out over time. That was helpful. And then as I started to like truly move out of the day-to-day sales business and out of production, hearing this in hindsight, maybe it seems long. At the time it didn't, but I did things by year. So those other things that I just said were all while I was still selling. But then I was like, hey, I think that I could move out of production. I think I've got this first couple agents, Ashton and Jared, on the team, and then Amy and Grace. It's like they can do it. Like I just got to get there. And so the first year I moved out of the buyer transaction. And so there was over a whole year period. And a couple times I failed because you're in conversation and you end up showing them a house and then they want to make an offer and you're already there. And then I had to learn like, well, what would I do next time? But over the year, I basically moved out of it. And it's like, I'm not doing the buyer transaction. The next year, moved out of the listing side. And, it's like, hey, make sure that Ashton can always go to the appointment with me or somebody else. And then the third year, I moved out of the actual appointment. Because even those first 2 years, I was going on like to secure the business. I'm doing the buyer consult or the listing appointment to secure the business in the third year. So it was a 3-year period of it. But it's back to kind of that same principle of like, pick something bite-sized that you can do. Now move out of the buyer transactions bigger, which is why it took a year, not a week. I'm not doing that next week. And just like start to work over time. And then you look up, those 3 years later and it's like, oh, I'm not working on the evenings and weekends. I've been able to protect that, time. So I think that's helpful. That's on the, like the transaction side. If you're trying to do the same thing like with fitness or health, is like you got to block that little bit of time that you can actually do it. Don't be like, I'm going to take all morning off. If you can't, take the amount of time you actually can and like really do it. And then you can start to just add on to that. That's kind of how it worked for me.
That's good. And yeah, you're not trying to like change your entire life. It's just like, let's small chunks at a time.
Yep.
So.
And then if you add them, like, you do it over time and you keep chunking a little chunk, another chunk, and then you look up and I actually had I got into the point, once I got to that point, I felt really guilty about it. I had these 5, this is a long time ago. It's funny that I think I can still remember. I had these 5 affirmations. I'm big at like telling yourself positive things and, asking God to help you with things and like, like all that sort of stuff. And I had these affirmations, and one of them is I will work less and not feel guilty about it. Because as I had moved out of out of production, I was like, it's Saturday. I should be working. Why am I not working? Like my teammates are working. I'm not working. What's wrong? And I was like, had to realize like, hey, this is okay. Like this is where we've got the business to, and this is what I've wanted. And I'm here, like I'm in a phase of life now where being with my family is more important and that sort of thing. So yeah, that was one of the others. See if I can remember. I'm doing a great job leading and encouraging the team. I'm a great husband and father. Our listings will sell. Fear around that. I will work less and not feel guilty, and I'm living a long and healthy life. It's pretty amazing. That's just like awesome. The power of like telling yourself, like that's been over 10 years ago, and I can still remember them just because I had them in my car, I had them on my mirror. I've like said them so many times, like they just like that kind of stuff gets implanted in your head. I think there's a lot of power of telling yourself, good truths in your head.
Yeah, and saying like optimistic is huge. And I was curious if you kind of look back, because everyone sees like all of the stuff that you have now. They see like the numbers, they see all of these like accolades, and they can see like the success on the outside, but they're not always there during the build. And there's a lot of ups and downs in the build. And I'm curious, like if you're kind of sharing like maybe a point in the build where you're like, maybe it was like tough or it was hard and you had to really dig. I was curious if there was a point throughout the last years where you might be able to share that with someone else.
Well, it's funny. We have definitely like this conversation has tilted towards the good things and the positives. My 7th grade daughter, she has an entrepreneurship class at school, which is pretty awesome. They have that in 7th grade.
That's awesome.
And they asked some entrepreneurs to like film videos and, go like tell their story a little bit. And so told my whole story and did this video. And then the professor, who she's awesome, I hear her like give the recap of it. Her recap was turning lemons into lemonade. And I'm like, yeah, that is something that like I've had to do a good amount of times. Like here we hit a lot of the high levels, but yeah, a lot of things have not gone well for me. One thing we didn't start, my career in real estate started flipping houses. And so I flipped a lot of houses in the early 2000s, and market was good. It was good. But I was still doing that at the end of 2007, beginning of 2008. Market turned, we had 12 houses for sale, none under contract, upside down on all of them.
Jeez.
And it's like, oh no. This is really bad. I mean, we are in an amount of debt didn't realize was possible. The only thing I know how to do is flip houses, but the market is declining so hard. I mean, to buy so deep to be able to do it, that was the only revenue that we had, though, was selling houses. So what am I going to do? That was an absolute mess. I mean, all sorts of short sales and payment plans, and it was awful. And so that's how I actually launched my real estate agent career, was out of that. And I was basically like, I've got to make some money. Like I have to do it. The good thing, this is the turning lemons into lemonades. Guess what I knew a lot about? Short sales and bank-owned properties. Well, a lot of people needed help with that. I was not the only one in that situation. And so a lot of people needed help, and I actually knew a lot about it. And so like that's kind of how I launched the career there. I knew a lot about, I was helping first-time home buyers both get grants and buy bank-owned properties. So they're getting these properties way under market value and so that's an example of turning lemons into lemonades. But at the time, like now I look back and I'm like, oh, it was great. It was like the market of the moment. It was awful. I mean, it was like, creditors calling you all the time and fear and tons of stress. I mean, I mean, that was like so bad. And so business launched out of that. And then, you know, you get going, and then it's like there was eventually got to that point of success. But then that working all the time, it was awful, even though like the financials was a gift to be able to like finally let me pay off all that stuff. And like that stuff got behind me. But now I'm like, well, I didn't get in business for myself to work every minute of every day. But like I felt trapped. And I know a lot of other real estate agents can feel that, like felt trapped of like, I don't have time to hire somebody. I don't know if somebody else could do it. I'm going to let these clients down. If I stop taking these clients, they're going to stop referring me. There's all like the fear of that. You know, then we started, you know, growing the team, and the team's growing, and then, you know, some key people leave, and you're like, I mean, is this all going to crumble down? Is everyone going to leave? If they leave, like, am I going to be back to selling the houses? And, you know, so, I mean, I'm hitting like, I could hit a lot more of these. And, you know, and I think like, well, one of the most recent ones was after we started Bolst, and I told you like how poorly the recruiting went, you know, so we started at the end of 2021. The market turned in the middle of 2022 after when interest rates went up. So now it's like the end of 2022. And I'm like, oh man, the market is bad. The brokerage is failing. The team's doing the team's going to be fine in the long run, but not good in the short term because like our cost structure is not based on the current market. So we're gonna have to change our whole cost structure around to get in line with the market. I could have, you know, gone to another brokerage, and we had really great offer. Like, you know, to take a team selling 800 houses to a new brokerage in 2021, the offers were good. It was a good time to get an offer. And I was like, what did I do? I mean, I completely botched this whole situation up, you know? And so even then there's like self-doubt and, you know, wondering, is it the right thing? And, second guessing myself, all that sort of stuff. And so I think back to your positivity though, to have a reason of what you're going for and what you're trying to do, and like an overall positive mindset frame and set, and tell yourself like all that stuff is like required. And, you know, I'm really, you know, lucky. I have an awesome wife who has like been so supportive of my entrepreneurial spirit and all of that sort of stuff. And is like, you know, helped me stay positive and see the big picture and not wallow in the bad things that are happening. And I think if you have somebody like that in your life, it is just so helpful, because it can be hard to step back and see the big picture when you're in it day to day, and you're like, I have to lay this person off. This person said they were going to join and they didn't. And you're like, oh my goodness, this is awful. And it's like, hey, this is just like one season in a whole like lifetime career. Like, this is my career, this is my thing. So this is like one season of like a big, you know, big picture.
Yeah, I was actually gonna bring that up. That you had a quote around that. Life's great. Got 3 daughters. They're at the time 12, 8, 6. Mm-hmm. Awesome wife. High school sweetheart. My wife has always supported my entrepreneurial spirit, and she gave me the green light. And having that like rock and green light, what has that kind of like meant, and how have you seen that be like the foundation throughout?
Man, yeah, just so lucky with it. I mean, even that first start to flip houses, she had a great corporate job. That we were early married right out of college, and I've only had one real job. I had a corporate job right out of college, and I was like, I think I can make a living flipping houses. And, you know, she gave me the green light. And I mean, man, when we first started flipping houses, we did this, I think 4 times. One, we were living with my business partners. So we're recently married and we have roommates. And 2, when we would fix up a house, we would put that house for sale and the house we were living in for sale. Whichever one sold first, we would move. So if we sold the house we were in, we would move into the other house, fix another house up, put them both up for sale. And my wife did that multiple times. So we lived in 4 different houses in the first 2 years or whatever. And, so that right there probably says everything that you need to know about it, because that is, saintly to do that. And so, but yeah, that's just been that's kind of like sums up our partnership on it. And then, when I had the terrible stuff in 2007 to 2008, she still had a good corporate job. And that's basically what allowed me to give real estate another chance and go into the full-time agent business. I mean, if she hadn't had that, I would have had to have gotten something where the income was much more guaranteed than even if I could have. I mean, 2008 was not an easy time to get a job. So anyway, those are like just like the big picture of even the ability to do it. But then as you go on with it, a great partner to understand, hey, this business doesn't always have normal hours, and sometimes you have to take a phone call, and that sort of stuff is hugely helpful. And I've seen this in a lot of real estate agents. If their partner or spouse is not on board with it, it's tough. I mean, because it's a tough job in general, especially with the time demands. And so if you're not on the same page, man, that is hard to thrive through.
Yeah. I feel like that's huge in like any entrepreneurial is like having a partner that's there with you is like massive. So I'm curious, everything that you learned, if you had to leave like your kid with like one message and say, this is what world-class leadership means, what would you say?
I think if I were going to try to sum it up to the very, very core on leadership, is that world-class leadership looks like serving others above yourself. I mean, I think that the best leaders are leading by serving, and there's multiple ways you can do that. I mean, you can do it through example, through relationships, through building other people up. But I mean, I think if you come at it with the servant heart, even when you don't do things perfectly, which you're not, like it allows other people to give you grace. It allows you to be humble and learn from it, is to just like take that servant approach from leadership. That's kind of what that's what I've tried to follow. And I think that helps the failures bounce back quicker and helps you get back on course better, is to, look at it from, hey, how can this situation is bad. How can I help the other people in the organization? How can I serve them? And because when you do, it ends up, even you're not doing that to be self-serving, but it does end up serving the organization well because you're helping other people.